Thanks for coming. I know you've been sitting and listening a lot this morning, and I really want to get you to talk today. So this is always a dilemma. I know people come, tell me what you've got, and some people love to leave with numerous, copious notes. And I would really like your dialogue and question. Please come in, everybody. Can I have a raise of hands where there's an open seat in case someone's coming in late? There are seats, and I'm just kind of killing some time introducing myself now, so you're not interrupting any. Thanks for your help, everybody. And thanks for coming. Now, is this spring break at your school, or are you having to leave work to come here? Yeah. So that what happens means you'll have fun now, but then when you go back, it's all piled up. You know, I know how it is, so I appreciate the time making the commitment, and I am really proud of the numbers of people from Kentucky who are here, and the 2-year and 4-year representation. That's really impressive. I know in California, which I am not a Californian, by the way, let me just clarify that, but I'm on the left coast now. You know, it's really, whenever something like this is held, the community colleges, all of 110 of them in that Golden State are woefully underrepresented, so it's a nice partnership. And you know, I was the other day when it was all that talk about who was going to win, Kentucky or Louisville, and what did it matter? Either way, Kentucky was going to win, and people are asking me, well, what do you think, Joe? And this shows you my ethnic bias. Well, both coaches are Italian-American. Either way, I'm going to leave happy, you know. So, but congratulations that they made it to the final. And I know 5 o'clock is a big time tonight. So you know what backward design is? That's the whole design for the rest of the afternoon, is to make sure we get you out by 5 o'clock. So bear with me. I know people respond to the messenger as well as the message, and I think if you wouldn't mind me being just a tad narcissistic for a second so you know who I am. I'm a faculty member. I've been that my whole life. I'm a teacher. I'm an advisor. I've been on committees. I've been a very lucky faculty member. I did not get that first job at the University of Nebraska, which was a research institution, as you know. I ended up at a small college in Iowa. I went to graduate school in Iowa and met my wife in Iowa and taught there. And I was very lucky to be at an institution where teaching was highly valued. Advising was valued. Service to students was truly valued. And as a new faculty member, you know this deep, dark secret. You talk about students being underprepared for college, but people with lots of letters behind their names, you know, PhD, LSD, PCP, RSVP. I swear I got married right before my doctorate, and my wife was so relieved that I got that over with. Now I could give her maximum attention. And then I hit the professoriate and realized work has just begun. I was running scared those first 3 to 4 years, trying to figure out how to teach, how to construct a valid and reliable classroom test, how to advise. I was on committees on general education. What did I know about what every educated undergraduate should know after 6.5 years, getting narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower in graduate school? And then I thought it was me, that maybe it was just the University of Iowa ill-prepared me. But that's the most common experience, as you know, is most of your professors. I'm not faculty bashing, don't get me wrong. I'm proud to be a faculty member. My 2 best friends are faculty members. But this has to be acknowledged when we talk about student success. Every conference I go to, how do we get faculty on board? Well, it's not that we're all sociopaths and cold-hearted people. Well, there are percentage. I mean, any population, you'll see that bell-shaped curve, and there will be some that are just ornery. But, you know, with all this finger-pointing at education, we got to do a better job preparing our teachers, our K-12. Where is the finger-pointing in graduate education in America? We are ill-preparing our faculty. So to make a long story short, I'm here because I was ill-prepared. I started to read, tried to figure out what to do. And I was lucky to be at a college that if you had time to do research, fine, but your first priority was teaching and advising. So, you know, I was in the habit of writing and doing, because that's what we learn in graduate school. I could not continue to do verbal learning and memory, which is my little narrow area. I ended up writing about the stuff I was learning as a teacher and advisor and trying to help students succeed. It became my quote, scholarship. I am not a George Coup. Don't get me confused with that other little Italian guy, Vince Tinto, from same neighborhood in New York. I am not Pasquarella. I am not Terenzini. Now, they're all Italians, and, you know, they're not pizza makers, as George Cuseo said. Actually, they were all called one time the Retention Mafia, Tinta, Pasquarella, and Terenzini. I tried to join later, but I didn't have the record, the publication record. I had the criminal record. Well, my Uncle Tony, never mind. So I guess what I'm saying, my approach here really is going to be different than George's. He's really the research guy. My suggestions and thoughts I'm sharing with you is sort of grew organically out of work with students and being on committees. You know, my friend Aaron Thompson sees I'm an international expert. First of all, what's an expert? Is someone who knows more and more about less and less until they know a whole lot about very little that almost anybody else cares about. But I'm certainly not an expert. I'm really here probably because of the internet. And I just put stuff on there on listservs. I mean, stuff that really, things I couldn't even get accomplished on my own campus that came out of committee work. And you know, you don't realize you hit a button, it reaches a lot of people. You write an article in a book, you're lucky if you find 5 people the rest of your life that say, Joe, I read that, that was helpful. You hit a button and you know, 5 people will write back, that's just what I needed. So that's why I'm here. I mean, this is not a false modesty thing. I am compulsive. I think I'm prepared. I think I have something to share with you. It is research-based, but please know that that's my direction. I was also lucky. Aaron talked about mentoring this morning. My first mentor was not a faculty member. It was somebody in student affairs. He was just married like me. We both liked sports. We both had the same sense of humor or lack thereof. And he sort of informally showed me what student affairs was. Again, as a faculty member, the first time I heard student affairs after being sequestered in graduate school for 6, you know where I'm going with this. I thought it was some erotic thing going on with students and faculty at the school in Iowa. I corrected that quickly, but I did slip, you know, then I realized. And, you know, I'm mentioning this to you because what happened to me, there's 2 really lessons here as I'm just trying to let you know who I am. A, we got to do, what happened to me by accident could happen intentionally. In other words, A, are our faculty reward systems really rewarding student success and what's on our mind at this symposium? And frankly, it's not always that case. You know, I was lucky. B, I was lucky to run into a student-centered student development professional that turned me on to the importance of the co-curriculum, student life, and how much of student success was affected beyond things just in my classroom. That was, what is it, serendipity. Why couldn't that happen intentionally? What do we do with new faculty orientation? That's a powerful opportunity. Some faculty haven't developed bad habits yet. They really are willing when they first come in to do the right thing if we could get to them. What happened to me might happen intentionally with systematic new faculty orientation. And God knows we need faculty development built in somewhere because we don't get what we need to know in graduate school. And, you know, the farther we can get away from freshmen, the more, the more prestige we have. It's like they got cooties, and we have to some way, a key to this success movement and the goals of this conference, I think, is faculty involvement. And it starts, I would even say it starts with faculty recruitment, intentional position ads where how often do you see in a Chronicle of Higher Ed ad where you're after a faculty member who's sensitive to advising, student-centered, engaging? You rarely see that. No, we want a 16th Elizabethan historian with a subspecialization. You know where I'm getting at. It's all content-driven, and then we need good new faculty orientation, we need faculty development, and a faculty reward system that really supports student success. And I didn't mean to go into that deeply, but I just wanted to know where I was coming from. My initial goal right now would be to go around and talk to each of you. What brought you to this session, what you'd hope to take away. But this is an artificial situation. I can't do that. But that would be my gut feeling. Here's the best I can do. How many of you your position title would be faculty that primarily role is classroom teaching? Happy to have you here. We need you. And I admire your commitment. How many would be academic support professionals? By that I mean library, learning center, academic advising. Can I have a hand? Thanks, guys. And how many would be student services, student life, student development, orientation, holistic, and, okay, which we need you. We need you, not just faculty. And we don't just need academic seminars. We do need those holistic seminars as well, those student success courses you're involved in. And you're stuck with me tomorrow morning, too. so I don't want to repeat things, but gosh, you know it. Success is holistic, and we've got to address the whole person. Did I miss anybody in that title? Okay, I'm sorry, this was not a Freudian slip. Administrators. How about let's start with academic administrators. Thanks for being here. We do need top-down support. We need bottom-up support. How about department chairs or deans? That would be middle managers. Okay. Now watch those people. I mean, in a good way. I mean, this is in the change model. We certainly need the support of presidents and deans. We need the support of the grassroots people in the trenches, in classes, with students and support services. But those middle managers can wield a lot of power, and they're often overlooked in the change literature. They often control the reward system. One thing I'm learning in higher ed, people often have more allegiance to their department, their division, or their program than they do to the university or college as a whole. And we have really, to get at change, I think it's a tri-directional process. Top down, bottom up, and what am I saying? Side in. All of this is not on the script, and I always do this, and this is what messes me up. Here is, can you find, that was my attempt at least to get to know you, student affairs professionals, deans of students, are any of them here? Did I leave them out? Thanks, guys. Does anybody's job title not fit into the quadrants that I just outlined there? That would not, that's not, I know it's please. Institutional research, I meant another gentleman. Institutional research assessment, very important. We have to define success before we can measure it, and we need to assess it to know if it's really happening. Thank you. Well, that's my best to connect with you. Hopefully we can have time at the end where we'll have open questions. I've built a little rapport. As we go through this, I'm going to do it fast, New York style, get you what I got. Please make a note. Oh, boy, that's something that we could really want to talk more about. And I'm going to stop and allow significant time for interaction. This is not good teaching. You know, you talk about engaging pedagogy. After about 10 minutes, we really should do something. That's my gut feeling. I've done that in the past. You know, I do read my evaluation seriously. After the first 10-minute break, people get so excited, I never complete anywhere near the end of the outline. And then you have those people who are their potty training was a little different. They wanted that whole outline covered. So my plan is going to be, know the discussion is coming. And if I can ask you to postpone gratification until we get to that, and also knowing I'm not modeling good pedagogy. I really should stop every 10 minutes and have you talk. To orient you, in your packet, you should see something that says 7 Universal Principles of Student Success. Do you have that, guys? Don't have to worry about PowerPoint. It's a long story. Even tomorrow in that big room, you will not have PowerPoint. You'll see this boarded outline. Is everyone with me? Anyone have one? That's going to be our outline for today. This is actually something I developed when I first started teaching. Remember I said I was running scared as I was at Kirkwood Community College in Iowa, Cedar Rapids, and this was my first cue that community colleges need more respect. They used to refer to themselves at Kirkwood as Jerkwood Community College because they weren't at the University of Iowa, which was selective. Notice how we define quality in terms of selectivity, it's in the admissions process, not in the educational process. Watch that. That's one of those philosophical things that we've got to, as success agents and catalysts for change, which we all are, we have to be cognizant of. Or MooU was the other thing, because it was kind of in Cedar Rapids, nowhere, and it was muddy. But it was my first, a naive young faculty member that, hey, why do they have this inferiority complex? I thought I was teaching at this school for students, and this is what excited me. This is what we go to education for, to make a difference. Did we go into it to make big bucks? If we did, didn't we make a big mistake? I mean, I thought I wanted to work with those students for whom a degree would matter most and who needed somebody like me. That were not autodidacts, didn't have mom and dad business to fall back on, who were not well prepared. I always prided myself in working with students who could have the most gain. And that's what made me feel going to bed every night that I was doing something. It really struck me. I want to talk to you about tomorrow, institutional pride. We want to keep students in college, period, but we want them to be proud to be associated with our institution. And I don't know, I think we may have to be more intentional about that. And you know, sometimes I get to go, again, it's the internet. We're a wide web, so someone in Australia will read something, can you come here? And I ask them, what do you think about American higher education? Because we love to say we're the envy of the world. I don't think that's true anymore. The two things they say, they envy our open access, how we've done that for so many years. The access, now they're beginning to be aware we're access not always with success. But the idea, this egalitarian Statue of Liberty idea that we're going to give everyone a chance to succeed, regardless of your background and preparation, that is quintessentially American higher education. Sometimes we take that for granted. And the other thing, this whole March Madness stuff. You know, I never realized that this spirit, and there's more to it. I mean, yes, it's sports, but it's the sense of a community rallying around something. They are just so surprised and envious of that. Apparently that's not very common in Australia and Canada, have that kind of rallying around the sports and the homecoming and the spirit. And you know, that keeps students in school. And the practical question I think I want to address tomorrow is how do we replicate this at community colleges, at schools where we don't have big football teams? How do we create this sense of esprit de corps, community? It's not just fun and nice to have. It keeps students, and Cuseo, some of his original work, he's an anthropologist. Students who feel a sense of community and they're part of this rituals, like homecoming, like sports, that keeps them in school. That helps with persistence. And how do we replicate that or simulate that or approximate that at two-year colleges and urban institutions that don't have that opportunity? Anyway, here's what I'm now finally getting to the outline. What I was going to try to get, and this sounds terribly grandiose. Please know that I'm not suffering from delusions of grandeur. I want to get at, I don't want the flavor of the month anymore. I'm tired of it. You know, this best practice thing, as important as it is, sometimes becomes popular practice. What's everybody else doing? And, you know, as I go to different campuses, they're not all created equally. They're all calling it a best practice, but it's not always being done, as Dr. Thompson likes to say, with fidelity. I'm after not the seasonals, but the perennials. What seem to be over and over again. These are not practices, I don't know what to call them, principles, processes, experiences that students have that we have so much research support that have withstood the test of time that maybe it would be worth kind of teasing them out and discussing them. In other words, I would argue that these principles are what make a practice a good practice. And that principles, unlike practices, do you do learning communities? Do you do early alert? Do you have a first year experience course? All those are plugins. I want the ground. I want research grounded, I don't know if I'm making any sense, things that are going to pervade the whole campus, that it would not only be a program, but it could start to infuse the entire culture, whether we're advisors, teachers, academic support professionals, residential assistants in the dorms. These are principles of student success that are not tied necessarily to programs, but could actually be embodied in practices and daily actions. Staff could do this as well. That was my dream in this session, was to try to get at these, how would you say, transformative, grounded. I don't want the cutting edge. I want the handle. We're going for the handle here, not the edge. We're not going for groundbreaking, but the deeply rooted, well-grounded principles or processes. You know, I was looking at the, what do you call it, the CPE, the Council of Post-Secondary Education, their first sentence in the introduction to their strategic agenda, Kentucky believes in the transformative power of post-secondary education. Well, I guess what I was trying to get at, what would be the transformative processes that would make that education possible? If education was transformative, what should be infusing systemically our culture? And we can change programs, but if we can change culture, that's deeper and durable and transformative. Is that making any sense? I'm having trouble putting it in words. And that was just a comprehension check question. My next questions to you will be things about what you want to learn. So anyway, that was my goal. Let me give you, are you with me on the outline? You got some of these box principles. What I want to do is give you an overview of these 7 principles and then leave it up to you. You tell me where you want to go. As I'm going through this, if something says, Joe, we really need this in Kentucky, or on this campus, this would be a hot topic to talk about your campus, you set the second half of the agenda. All I ask for you now is keep track. If any of these jump out at you as something you really think we'd like to go at in depth. So what I'm after here now is an overview of these principles or processes or experiences. Notice they're all happening to the student here. I'm not talking about what we do. What are our best practices? I want to let what's happening in the student when we do these practices. So these are, what would you say, learner-centered or student-centered experiences or processes. My argument here, it came up this morning, your president, Bob King, we not only want them to graduate, we want them to learn. It's not just completion. I don't think I'm being Pollyanna or I'm Mary Poppins, but I really do think these same principles not only promote retention or persistence. I prefer persistence to retention. You know what I'm getting at? Retention sounds so binding and almost constipatory, like you're retaining water and we need a diuretic or something. No, there was a faculty, you say retention, they right away, hand-holding, lowering standards. Persistence, on the other hand, has the notion that this is a shared deal. I think we'd all agree, no matter how student-centered we are, students have a responsibility in this persistence game. It's what we do for students and what students do for themselves. And I know IPEDS defines persistence and retention a little differently, so we do have some technical definitions, but in terms of internal use of the term, you're trying to get buy-in from faculty. Persistence has that connotation that students have to have stick-to-itiveness, resiliency, motivation. And so I'm arguing that these principles do not only promote retention, they promote learning because they're basically promoting motivation. And I think Ku was saying that toward the end of his talk this morning. The very principles or practices that promote retention also promote learning. The mantra, I'm not sure who said it, Tinto, Noel Levitz, successful education, successful retention is nothing more than successful education. You know what I'm saying? Retention is a byproduct. If we focus on how students learn and what motivates students, the retention will come. We don't start doing retention and then figuring out what we're going to do to promote critical thinking and learn. We can kill multiple birds with the same stone. I see the research supporting that consistently. And so that's what I'm looking at here. If I had to do this slide over, if I could do a 3D thing, it would not only be across the curriculum, I'd have what would be a third dimension. It would be across programs, teaching, advising. You know what I'm saying? So this is my delusion for the day, that these principles would pervade across the curriculum. Just like we talk writing across the curriculum, what if we talk student success across the curriculum? What would those experiences be? Now, what I want to do now with you is give you an overview of those with some visual aids, and then let's go at it. Personal validation, I don't know if you've heard of this term. I always knew this was important, making students feel important, like they matter. You may have heard of this term, mattering. Significance, this is an adult education term, Schlossberg, Chickering, somebody else is down there. He's even the bigger one. Chickering, Schlossberg, Chickering, Lynch, yes. They have a book, and this there was focusing on adult learners. Laura Rendon, I don't know if you've ever heard her name. She's at UT San Antonio right now. No, she was at the University of Iowa State. She's probably the leading scholar on first-generation students of color. And she's actually coined the term personal validation. Same idea as Chickering, Schlossberg, and Lynch. We've got to make students feel that they're not just student number 070423062, which happens to be my Social Security number, and stop writing it down. You have to model integrity for your students. That they're not a number, that they are welcomed here, they belong here, their individuality is recognized, that they're significant. That's what personal validation. Now, I should have just read the definition and tried to describe it. Personal validation, student success is fostered when students feel personally significant, i.e. when they feel recognized as individuals, that they matter to the institution, and that the institution cares about them as whole persons. Rendon's doing that from first generation, Schlossberg, Lynch, and Chickering. They're talking about reentry or non-traditional adult students. And Terenzini, one of those pizza brothers, according to Cuseo, has done that work with traditional age students. So, you know, you heard this term convergent validity or triangulation. When you see people working with different populations coming to the same results, that gives me more confidence that this is an important finding. Now, we can talk about this in detail, but simple things like learning students' names, learning something about them. Aaron talked about appreciative advising this morning. I heard, what is exactly appreciative advising? Well, you'll see in one of the appendices, it's an opportunity to get to know students, who they are, what their dreams are, what their goals are, what their concerns are, what their talents are. That's good advising, and good teaching starts with knowing who students are, not only to inform our teaching and our examples, but to show that we have an interest in them, that they are important to us. Now, I know this can be a little harder at larger institutions, but I've seen it happen. Personal validation can happen at large institutions, even their first impressions of campus. Do we welcome them? Whether it be orientation, I love convocation. I know it's hard to pull up, but a welcoming ceremony. We would do for all incoming students what we do for our graduating seniors, where we welcome them, have a ceremony for them, maybe a little reception afterwards. If not for the first-year students, what about our transfer students? Can we do that even departmentally? Can we give the business department to have a welcoming lunch and some kind of welcoming, warm, you know that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I know that's pop stuff, but I really do think it's true. The power of the first impression, dealing with the student as a whole person, not just a student number. That's what we mean by personal validation. We can come back to that, and I have some supplementary handouts for that. Number 2, have you heard of the term self-efficacy? Tom, you had a comment? Please.
There's research, at least in our field of communication, that shows that if you could connect with a student in your office outside of class, that their grade point average will go up at least
Yes.
a letter.
Yes.
And so, you know, we've got, in our class, we've got 24, 25 students. If I can get them in the lab, if I can get them to sit down, the 5 minutes that I'm explaining about a concept, they'll get 15 minutes in depth of how to do it,
Yes.
or how to write a paper. And if I can make that personal connection with them, I tell them, I said, your grade point average will go up. Even if you give me a rough draft of something, I'll tell you what's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not grading my own work.
Yes.
I'm grading yours.
Excellent. You know, Rendon has some work. She talks about holistic teaching. Parker Palmer, who was mentioned this morning, you know, you teach the whole person. You make the connection. And I said, some faculty said, well, no, we have to keep our objectivity. We have to grade these students. How can, you know, if they get too close to us? My experience has been just the opposite. If we make the connection, they come to class in part because of guilt. I don't want to let Dr. Joe down or Dr. J down. And I'll take it. You know, I was raised Catholic. Guilt can work. At least it starts that way. And I'll take it. And sometimes that morphs into intrinsic motivation later. Rendon has pointed that out. Parker Palmer has pointed that out. What I like here, though, is the actual measure of GPA that you have, Tom, at UK. That's exciting. Now, you know, Einstein said once, not everything that can be counted is worth counting, and many things that can't be easily counted really count, and I think this is one of them. So the fact that you're actually trying to get a measure of that quantitative excites me. But all of us in the student who are student-centered know this matters a lot to a student. Noah Levitz, they'll tell you, one of the most powerful predictors of sophomore return rates, if on an end-of-first-year survey, which we'll talk about tomorrow, if they could name someone on campus who they could go to, who knew them, and they could go to with a personal problem, that it's correlational. We can't prove causality,